Hello and welcome. We are Just Got Played, and this is a series that we're running called Gaming Through Mechanisms. So, what does that mean? That means that there's different ways that the people that make the games put the games together, different ways that you interact with the game, and just for a better way of discussing them with each other and categorizing them, we call those mechanisms. And today we're going to be talking about deck building as a mechanism in a game, and our favorite games that are deck builders, and also two which are the people's choice. So, I'm going to turn it over to Lloyd, and he's going to guide us through this mystical forest of deck building.
Deck building, yes. So just a quick note, BGG lumps in dice and bag building with this and calls it pool building, but we had a rift down the middle, and some of us wanted to do both and some of us didn't. So some of us are going to be on that other video and some of us aren't going to be on this video. And but yeah, the next video we're going to do the other half of pool building. So there will only be decks in this one. No, only cards.
Right.
Deck building is like one of my favorite mechanisms. I probably played 30 different deck builders. And I'm always looking for ones that do something different that aren't just deck builders. Like Dominion is you're just building your deck and going for points. And then they kind of evolved since then. So I'm always looking for something with another mechanism in there along with deck building to kind of spice it up. But we'll get to those. Let's start with JJ and see what his number one or number two or 87, because he's probably going to list off a whole bunch.
Judges?
Of deck builders.
Actually didn't need the judges for this one. So this is very shocking. I too love deck builders. It's probably my number one favorite mechanism. It's the mechanism I was first introduced to right after Munchkin. I don't even know what you want to call that one, but right after that was Legendary. I'm not going to name that one now since we've talked about it so much. But yes, that's how I popped my cherry, was Legendary, the deck building game. So I was very excited, Marvel themed and everything. That's not what I'm going to talk about right now. I'm actually going to talk about a more recent game that I've played that is a deck builder, but it doesn't actually have a buy row, which was very surprising to me because there's very few deck builders that don't have a main card area, don't have a grid, don't have a buy row to speak. Because you actually don't purchase the cards that you build your deck with. And that game is Path of Light and Shadow. It's one of the ones that came out right when they started doing deck builders with boards. I think I played it right after Clank came out, the original. But yeah, it came out, Path of Light and Shadow. You have your little peoples, you're moving around the board. You're trying to take over the towers and try to take over the area before the tower goes down and then score points that way. But what's nice is at the end of your turn, you actually don't buy the cards that go into your deck. You actually get to draw cards from the areas that you control. I think there's 4 different ones actually. There's I'm not going to name the names, but there's blue, yellow, red, and then black. Each little faction does their own special ability. Some let you draw more cards, some let you get rid of cards, or culling is what it's called in this one. But what's also nice is the cards that you pick up that add to your deck, you can upgrade those cards, which is pretty cool. So instead of moving around the board, you can actually upgrade the cards in your hand. I thought it was really cool when I played it because there is area control, but there's no buy row. You're just kind of adding cards to your deck. Now, what's bad is if you don't upgrade those cards and get rid of them, you will get stuck with, it's not your starting deck, but they're not much better than that. So it's you really want to upgrade your cards and get rid of them, and then just have those really good upgraded cards in your deck. Not too much more to say. The art is really good in the game. It's just got a great mechanic because you can move your people around, you can upgrade your cards, and then each card has 2 different things that you can do with it. But I was just really excited, and I know the expansion just came out, so hopefully I get to play that this weekend. Actually have that scheduled because I was very excited to hear that there's an expansion for it. So more on that later.
Indeed.
Nice. I have not even heard of that.
No, I've never played that either. It sounds interesting, though. It almost sounds like Mystic Vale before they figured out how to do put more stuff inside the sleeve deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of Mystic Vale to me. I just oh man, I don't even know what to say. You guys need to play it. Add it to the list. Somebody got to play it. It's really expensive.
Secretary,
yeah,
write it down.
It's one of those really expensive games, so it's going to be hard to get without paying the big old thing. I really wish I had kickstarted it when I saw it, but the box art looked really wonky to me, and I didn't understand it. But yeah, I loved it as soon as I played it. But yeah, good luck getting it for a cheap price. Hopefully, you can get it on resale or something. But yeah, Path of Light and Shadow. Add it to the list.
Add it to the list.
Do you have it? No, you don't.
No. My friend, my good buddy that buys all the Kickstarter stuff and has always something new. It's one of those ones I played with him like 5 years ago, one time, and it went in the rotation. But now that the expansion came out, he's like, I got to drag it. I was like, all right, you're gonna play it. Play it again. Okay. So yeah, I'll take pictures so you guys can be jealous and everything like that. So.
All right. Let's see who wants to go next. Do you have your pick, Tiff?
I think I have made my choice finally.
Okay.
I was really it was a toss up for me because one of my very early exposures to gaming with my son was with DC deck building. And when he was 4, we would break it out and we would play together, and we would have to play a super modified version so that he could participate because he couldn't read. But we would do the numbers and we would have our counters out and we would subtract our counters away and we would count our health points. And he loved seeing the superheroes and hearing about what actions they were taking. And he was super engaged by it. I loved spending time with him and getting that early exposure to gaming. And so I was really, really tempted to talk about that. But then I decided that I wasn't going to, that I was going to pull an Eric because every once in a while I want to talk about 3 games. So instead of talking about DC Deck Builder, I'm going to talk about a deck builder that I didn't really think of as a deck builder until Babe was going through a list of games that I might be familiar with. It is a game where you are building 3 decks actually at one time, and each of the decks is in a specific order. You can't change the order of the deck except through the cards that are in the deck. And the game is called Kashgar. So it's this interesting game where you're obtaining cards and you have cards and you play them into one of 3 piles, and you play them so you can see what's behind the card that you just placed. So they're kind of all in a line spread out, and for rows that are like columns that are kind of stacked in front of you so that you can see what's behind, what's coming next. And the cards get flipped over, like abilities get activated, and you flip cards over, and cards get taken out of the game when they get used. Some of them do, but it's just a really interesting take on deck building that I think is an unusual way to look at deck building. So I had to mention it because it's so interesting. You're building these 3 different decks while you play this game, but you can't change the order of the decks. You kind of have to think really critically about what cards you're going to place where, because that's going to be the order that you're stuck with later. So it's just really interesting and makes you think.
Yeah, Kashgar is really good. I like it a lot too. At its heart, it's really just a Euro where you kind of just get product and then turn it in for other things that are basically victory points. But the really cool thing is that different decks. I agree 100% because you can make them do different things. Like if I have 3 decks going, one of them might be a long cascade of just getting different stuffs constantly. And the other one's like 3 cards. And I just keep using those to cash in for points. But you choose the one you want to use at any point in time. So you can set them up to work off of each other and either go slow or go fast or however you want that deck to work. And it's just a really cool mechanism. I really like that a lot. Good choice.
Yeah, you talked about this one before and you mentioned it to me and I was like, oh, I'm going to go look at it. And then like you said, it was a Euro and I was like, no.
Yeah, it is, but it's not really. Really, it's just about the deck building and the playing of that. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're like gathering spices and gold and stuff, and you're using that to buy other cards, basically.
Yeah. If someone has it, I will play it. But I went and looked it up, and I was like, yeah, it's not going to go in my collection. it won't look right next to like Marvel and Dead of Winter and stuff. So, I will go next. I kind of went I'm going a little bit. I'm going to pull an Erock. I'm going to go off the reservation here a little bit and choose not any of my like top picks, because I've sprinkled those into other categories. The games that I really wanted to talk about. So when we got to deck building, I talk about the ones that I don't ever really talk about. And one of them, it's classified. It's another one of those things, kind of like how Smash Up made this term called shuffle building, which is basically just putting two decks together. But they coined this term. This did something similar. It's from Indie Cards and Games, and it's called Grifter or Grifters. Is it Grifters plural? Yeah, Grifters plural. And they coined a term called hand building, because you're doing all the same stuff you have as a deck builder, but you never get a deck. The way that your deck is kind of metered out over the game is you start with a small deck of cards, a small hand of cards, and as you play these cards, they, instead of just going into a discard pile, they go into basically what is like a timer until you get them back. So you're completing jobs. It's set in the what is the world that indie card board and card? It's the same world that like Resistance and all that stuff is set in. So it uses all the same terms. It uses like the same money system, all those games that are tied together. It's set in that world, and you are all basically kind of like mob leaders or gang leaders, and you're putting together teams of different henchmen, like car drivers and hackers and stick-up men and all these things, and they all have different abilities, and you're putting them together to complete jobs. And the jobs require a certain mix of different types of characters, but of course all of the characters do different things when you play them. And the kind of the interesting mechanics, like I said, it's a deck builder. You're doing the normal stuff, you're buying cards, you're recruiting them, but they're just coming straight to your hand, and you never really get a deck, but you never really get a really big hand. The kind of interesting mechanism that it uses is whenever you use a team, you can only use, and you can use as many cards as you want. I think there's an upper limit, but you can put down 1 to like 5 or 6 cards in a team. But once you use those teams, I think thematically they have to kind of lay low for a few nights. So you basically put them down onto this little board, and it has like 3 nights. And so each round they move 1 night further until you get those cards back. And then once you get them back, they go back into your hand. But it was interesting enough twist on deck building, because you're doing all the same things. It's just you always know what you have. It's just a matter of unlike deck building where it goes into your discard and you're trying to play the odds of getting stuff into your hand and the shuffle, where you're going to recruit and stuff like that. This one is, well, maybe I don't want to play this card this turn because I know on my next turn this other team's going to come back and I'll be able to use these 2 guys together. So you see what's coming slowly to you. So it's almost like an open-faced deck builder, I guess. It's like an open-faced pastrami sandwich. Instead of it all being tucked in there and you don't know what's coming, you see it and you just have to plan around where it's coming. So it's kind of an out there pick, because it's like I said, you never have a deck. It's all going to your hand, but you're doing all the same things you do in a standard deck builder. Just that weird mechanism of the time to kind of space out when you're going to get those cards back. So it's playing a lot with time. But that is my off the wall number 1 pick for a game that probably wouldn't fit into any other category ever, unless we did something based on theme, because wouldn't know where else to put it except into a deck builder. So that is my pick, Grifters. And they did make a sequel or an expansion, a sequel. I don't know.
That's interesting. It actually reminds me a bit of Kashgar, because in Kashgar, you see all the cards. That's what Babe was saying. Like, you do have a deck, but they're all laid face up in like splayed backwards, so you can see them. And when you play the front one, you move it to the back. So you see all the cards, and it's a matter of planning all this stuff out so that you execute it in time. So, interesting.
Yeah. Well, I said, if someone has that game, I will play it, because it sounded interesting. It just, theme has to hook me. And if theme doesn't hook me, I'm just...
Well, your game sounded interesting. I've never even heard of that. So we'll have to have a little game off Yeah.
Yeah,
I really got a lot of games to add to the list.
Add it to the list.
I will say it's not for Care Bears. There is some take that in there because you're rival gangsters, so you can mess with other people's teams. You can recruit people from their squad. You can steal people. You can kill their people. There's lots of little. So it's not a friendly game.
Man,
by
I'm
any
just getting
means.
more and more excited.
Interesting.
Now. Keep talking more.
So all right, well we'll close out the first round with Erock. What is your number uno?
Okay, so I pulled a little bit of an Erock myself. I talked about a couple of other games during y'all's selections, but I'm actually going to go kind of wild card left field on this because I had this narrowed down to 3 games, and I believe 2 of them are the people's choice. So I'm going to talk about one game, and then eventually we'll talk about the people's choice, and I'll chime in on my other 2 picks. So the one game that is not either of the people's choices, but is mine, is Dune Imperium. I love Dune Imperium. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Every time I play it, it gets better and more intriguing to me. Each expansion that I've played, every little bit that adds to it gets better. It gets more intriguing to me. It kind of opens up the world a little bit more, and you see more of these possibilities out there in this landscape. I absolutely love it. Just a very brief synopsis. At its heart, it is a deck builder that you also play on a board, and you use the cards to be able to place your workers out on specific spaces on the board to accomplish specific worker placement action type movement things. And then also there's a combat at the end of every round. And sometimes you can go out on the board and add to that combat for you. And sometimes it's just the cards you didn't spend this turn as your actions are left over, and you can add that to the combat at the end of the round also. And the whole point is to get to 10 points, right? And that's it. And there's only 10 rounds in the game. So usually 8 or 9 rounds and this game's over. It's not a short game. I don't want you to think it's 45 minutes and it's over. It's not, because everybody has all of their worker action movements and placements every turn also. But I'm saying 8 or 9 times and that's it, which is a bad thing as far as straight up deck building goes, because you're not going to cycle through this. You know, like if you played Dominion before, you see the same cards 14 times. You know what I'm saying? In this, you're never going to see that. You'll be lucky to see the cards that you buy 2 or 3 times, but they're hugely impactful to what you're doing. And everybody starts with the same deck, of course, but then every card that you buy really like separates everybody out as to what they're doing. You really can specialize into different things. Like maybe I want to specialize in moving around the board. Maybe you want to specialize in buying more powerful cards, or maybe somebody else wants to specialize in working on technology or something like that. And all these cards point you in these different directions. And they're huge different pushes. Then you get in the base set. So, like I said, you're not going to see all these different cards 800 times, but when you do see them, they're incredibly impactful to what you can do on the board. And I think that's a really brilliant design. And I really like it as like the modern evolution of the deck builder as a mechanism in a game. You know what I'm saying? Like this and Lost Ruins of Arnak came out at the same time. And there's similarities between them because it's the same kind of, you buy cards that add to your deck and you're not going to see them all that often. I prefer this one. I feel like it's a more direct strategy game than Lost Ruins is more of a typical worker placement, go do your thing, build your thing. But aside from somebody getting in your way, that's really all the interaction is. And, you know, I like that kind of game. I've talked a ton about that kind of game before, but this one just, Dune Imperium just really scratches my itches. It gets that conflict, but it's not direct conflict. Like you're not at war, you just have a fight at the end of every round. It has that deck builder part of it that really scratches that itch for me because the cards are so impactful to your turns when you draw them. And the board play itself is fantastic. I just, you know, I know I've talked about this game before, but I can't help it. I just really like this game. Right now, I'm like hoping to get Intrigue. You know, like the newest expansion. I'm like, give me more. I want more. Because it's just fantastic and I play it anytime. So that's my one and only pick for now.
Yeah, I really hope the new expansion adds to it like the second or the first one did, because I don't even want to play without if you have the first expansion, I don't even want to play the base game anymore. So
I agree.
I'm excited as well.
Yeah, I still got to get that one. I like everything I've heard about it. Makes me want to play it. I just never seen the time. The person that comes to the game group that owns it, I'm there on like the other week, so I've never been there at the same time. And then one time we was there, it was too many of us, so it was like, well, we either have to split into two, or we just all play one big game together. I think that's where we did the 7-player Battlestar Galactica. So
yeah, I get it. I mean, if you go past 4, you're not playing this.
Yeah,
so
Oof.
I get it.
Yeah, it's on my list though.
Hit that niche, and it's great.
All right, I'm going to switch up the order a little bit, and I'm going to go back to Tiffany.
All right.
Number 2.
My second game that I chose was, and I'm looking over at it to make sure I don't mistake the name, Mystic Vale. And Mystic Vale is a great game. It's a deck builder, but you have sleeves of cards. So the number of cards in your deck never changes. But what you do is you buy these inserts that are clear, and they go inside your sleeves and they build cards. So that's how you're building your deck. You're building your deck 1/3 of a card at a time when you buy new inserts for your sleeves. And so you build your deck that way, trying out different strategies, doing different combos with the cards that you build. And kind of just moving forward from there. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't take too long. It's not too heavy. It's not too serious. But it's a lot of fun. So it takes some time, but it's not too heavy. So it's nice, I think, midway game when you're not looking for something too heavy, but you'd like a fun game to get to the table. So Mystic Vale.
Plus, it scratches that other itch of yours, pressure luck.
Yeah. I love pressure luck.
Yes,
it's very pretty game.
Yeah, I actually bought it from someone for like $5 because he wanted to get rid of it, and I was like, I don't want to just take it, so I'll give you here, take something. And he's like, I gave him 10, and he gave me money back, and he's like, I'll just buy lunch. And then I never played it again. I played it only with the leaders expansion, I guess. The expansion has the leader cards. And the base game was okay, but nobody at the house liked it. So I was like, so I passed it on to someone else that would play it. But I liked it. I just didn't have anybody to play with, and nobody there liked it in the gaming group. So that's hence the reason I got it for such a discount.
We probably liked it too much. Like, we went the other way. We went and got like basically everything for it. And it's a bit much. What I would recommend to anybody out there that is interested in this is buy the base game and see if you like it. And if you do, buy the first 2 expansions and stop. Because at that point, that's enough extra and you play with everything. After that point, it gets to be like Dominion, where you have to like put in sets of different stuff. And it just becomes kind of a chore at that point. Don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic game, and all the variety is great. I'm just saying, it's a chore a bit at this point, because like I said, you have like these sets of different upgrades, and you have to like add them in like certain sets and stuff like that, whereas base game and the first 2 expansions, you mix everything together and play with it, and that's so easy to play.
Do you get the extra player in the first 2 expansions?
Good question. I'm not really sure. I know it's leaders and something else, but we have so much I lost track of it. We have the giant conclave box or whatever, and then we got a little mad because like then they came out with an expansion after that, but they didn't have the fancy like card organizer cards
Divider.
For that one. It's like, seriously?
Okay.
So,
I actually just played the base game, but it had the 6-player expansion. So we played with 6 players. It took a little bit longer, but it still was, if everybody had known what to do and understand, like it played it, it would have moved pretty fast. So 4 to 6 players is still pretty quick.
It should move fast. If everybody knows what they're doing, then you basically do everything up to buy a card. You know what I'm saying? Because the whole little pressure luck thing, you can do that by yourself. And the game straight up tells you, keep drawing until you get to 3. Once you get to 3, then stop, and now you have to make choices. But like I'm saying, you could still just keep going and be ready when it's your turn, So
Exactly,
this game moves pretty good. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
It's great for the app too, for that reason, because it moves so quick.
I agree. It's great on we play it on Steam sometimes. It's fantastic. I know Babe plays on her phone. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I agree 100%.
Yep.
Digital making things better. Let's go back to Mr. Jim Jam JJ. What's your number? 2, 3, 4, 5.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Okay. So number 5 is DC deck builder. Yes. This is why I'm wearing the shirt. Okay. So we got to go up the list, and then, you have Clank and then everything else. Okay. But all right. So I went a little out there. I'm glad that nobody actually heard of my first pick, because that means we can play it, and I'll keep playing it, and hopefully somebody will buy it, and I'll play your copy. So that's how that works. So I'm going to pick a game that this game is probably the game I've played the most ever out of all the board games, because I play the app on my phone. And it's just, when somebody's new to board games and everything, this is one that's really simple to just play, because all you need is just the cards. You don't need a board or anything. And you there's no really objective except for to take out the other person. So my number 1 pick is not DC Deck Builder, which is kind of strange, because that's another game I've played a lot of, but it is Star Realms. And I'm very shocked that you guys had never played it. That makes me very, very sad, because
I've played
so simple. Well, there's
I haven't.
Somebody who hasn't played it yet. But so Star Realms is a very simple deck building game. You have ships and you have bases, and you attack the other person. There you go. I'm done.
You lost Babe at you attack the other person.
Yeah.
I know. Right?
Doesn't seem very nice.
No, there's no Care Bears here. That's the whole point, is to get the other person's life all the way down to 0.
Right.
That's literally the whole point. But there's 4 different factions. Each faction has like little special ability. And then basically all you're doing is buying the ships, the bases, and then the bases stay out and they do stuff, and the ships, they attack. It's so simple. And that's why I like it when I'm teaching somebody new, because that's literally all you do. And exciting news is they did the Kickstarter a few months ago for the legacy version of this, which is great. So I'm really looking forward to that this summer. And hopefully we'll get all kinds of stuff on the channel. But just like Mystic Vale, you can go a little overboard with the expansion, because there's like a million of them. The base game is very boring. I do like it because you can scale it up. Basically every deck you can just add 4 more people for each deck that you have. But yeah, each expansion, if you added everything, it would get very confusing. So you can add more ships and everything, but there's some expansions that actually add once per game powers and like events and stuff like that. So that stuff I would add. I don't know if you need to keep adding more ships. There's like a billion versions of all the different ships and bases. Those expansions I probably wouldn't really get to, because you just add more ships. There's actually no different mechanics in there, but definitely get the events and get the one-time powers, the commanders or whatever, leaders or whatever it is. But yeah, love Star Realms. Play it on the phone. Play is amazing. And now the app has tournaments, so I'm very competitive. So I like that. So there's daily tournaments, usually like 2 or 3 a day, so you can jump in there. I would play more often, but they do run like an hour, because there's usually like 80 people from all over the world in there. Plus you can just play in the later one. So there's like an afternoon, morning, and evening one. So if you have time, check that out. And then, they actually break it down to Swiss format, if anybody knows about tournaments. So when they added that was great. They do have Hero Realms. If anybody's asking, I know somebody probably asked about that. I am not a fan, because I'm a space person and not really like a rogue and thieves and warrior type person. It plays a little bit differently. What's nice about Hero Realms is that you have different starting decks, which I would hope they put in Star Realms. It would be amazing. But each role has a different starting deck. And they just added some more too on their next little Kickstarter expansion. So there's like 10 different roles, starting decks that you can use when you're playing. So if they added that to Star Realms, I'd be so happy. But that'd be my only reason for playing Hero Realms over Star Realms, because somebody asked. So just wanted to answer that question.
We actually have that. All right, so we have the single deck Star Realms, but then we went and Babe doesn't, this was me mostly, but we got the big old Hero Realms one. And the main reason is because you can play that co-op. And I thought that's up Babe's alley. she's not trying to beat the other person to death, but she will play co-op to beat some unknown thing to death. So
Yep.
Some people like that, I guess. I don't know
plus,
what that
she's
means.
more fantasy than sci-fi. She's like the opposite of you in every possible way.
Totally fine with that. 2 thumbs up for that. Somebody's got to buy those games. It's not going to be me.
That's right.
Indeed.
Yeah, I didn't know. I almost backed Hero Realms. I didn't know how to co-op mode, so I backed off of it. But
I think it's a newer
we'll-
expansion too. That's why.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I looked at it when it first came out. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I like Star Realms. I kind of like what's going on. I think they did Epic, the card game too, right?
Yeah.
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 And it was like, I think Hero Realms came after that. I don't know. I had backed Epic. So, yeah, that's still sitting in a box somewhere. I've played it like once. Anyway, let's go back to Erock for his number 2.
Nope, passing on number 2. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, you're not going to do your number 2? Okay.
Number 2
then
and
I
3
guess I'll-
are the people's choice, so I'll just
Oh.
hang for a little bit.
Okay. I thought you had another one that you were going to do. Okay. I'll go to my number 2 then.
Number 2.
So I would like to pull a JJ here and list off every deck builder that I have that I like, but I'm not going to. I've been playing a lot of G.I. Joe lately, which you see the reviews I put up, and they added the Dreadnoks, which is why that was like my big complaint of the previous expansion. I was like, where's my Dreadnoks? And then they put them in there. It's like they listened to me. They saw my video and they did it. It's not like they had it planned. They saw my video and they're like, we got to make him happy.
I mean,
So-
Be the change in the world you wish to see.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yes. Be the change you want to see. I'm going to go with a game that I don't even have a box for because I can't get the new company to sell me a box. But the game is called Apex. I think it's like a Theropod deck builder or something like that. Basically, it's a dinosaur deck building game.
Mm-hmm.
The original production came out. It was like a one-man show and went from all this like cool 2D artwork, and he realized like the game expanded to the point where he couldn't actually complete the 2-dimensional art because he was the artist and the designer and stuff. So he switched over to doing like 3D and using ZBrush, and he made me cry because I've been doing 3D art forever and I can't do what he did. And he picked it up apparently like overnight, and he was like, "Here's what we're doing 3D," and I was like, "This is amazing. It looks better than Jurassic Park on some of this stuff." But it had an expansion, like a follow-up expansion, like a big box expansion, which I didn't back because Kickstarter stuff, he was trying to fund one to pay for the other, and I didn't want to pay $30 for an empty box. So I just didn't. But the game doesn't fit in the box that it came with. It got bigger than the box, and so I can't fit it. So it's in one of my old legendary boxes because that's all it fits in.
This
And then
is
the
funny to
expansion-
me. You actually didn't back it because it was a box, and now all you want is the box.
Yes. Yes. So not to get into it, but I asked the guy, I was like, "Hey, I don't understand your pricing structure here, like on his chat board or whatever." And he like told me to shut up, and then he blocked me. So I was like, "Screw it, I'm not gonna back it."
Whoa, what the heck?
That's hilarious. He's like, I'm not even going to sell you one. You have ruined it.
Well, no. So it was very troubled. It was very troubled. And somebody else bought it. And then I think somebody else bought the company that bought it. So it's now with like a third company or something. So I emailed them multiple times and they always get back to me. We go back and forth until the point where it's like, here's my shipping address. Tell me what I owe you and I will buy it from you. And then it goes radio silent forever. And then after a couple of years, it'll be like, "Hey, can I have a box?" And they're like, "Whoa, we'll check." And then we go through the cycle again. I give them my shipping address and then they just radio silence. I'm like, whatever. I guess I'm never going to get a box for this game. But all that aside, it is a really cool game. You pick a dinosaur, and they're all obviously they're all some type of carnivore, and they all play a little bit different. And you don't share a deck in this game. The only thing you share is there is a hunting row where that's kind of what you use to feed your dinosaurs in order to get new dinosaurs. So there's a hunting row where dinosaurs come out and you hunt them. So you hunt like Triceratops and all these friendly dinosaurs, and there's some mean dinosaurs in there too that will attack you if they're out, and they're worth less food, but whatever. And then there's a secondary row that's like genetic upgrade, so you can get that to like be more resilient to disease, because like your wound cards can get infected over time if you draw too many, so you can get these different cards. So you share those, but you don't share the actual dinosaurs that you're building. So I'm building a T-Rex. You'll be building raptors. The other person will be building a giant crocodile. And each deck is its own. You have a starting deck, and then you have another deck that's all of the upgraded ones. And the way you actually get new dinosaurs is you have to hatch them. So you have to buy egg cards. And when you take the egg cards, when you play those out, that actually brings out, that kind of makes a little portfolio of your cards. You flip out, if you play 3 eggs, you flip out 3 dinosaurs, and those are the ones that you can recruit from this turn. So it's kind of like a weird, like it's like a double deck builder, because sometimes you have to burn through that hatchery deck, so that you can, because your alpha dinosaur may come out on turn 1, and you clearly can't afford your top tier predator. So you need to like, now like, I got to invest in eggs, because I got to get that, I got to burn through that deck so I can get it back later in the game, so I can then afford it. So you're building like kind of you're cycling your hatchery deck while also building your main hunting deck that you're going to use. And it's got some nifty little mechanisms where there's like an event system that triggers every round, and you're basically racing to a meteorite destroying the planet. So that's kind of your round timer.
So you win when everybody loses.
Yeah, so you basically you're playing for points, and at the end everybody loses. Everybody dies.
I'm excited you got the game, because I too was going to jump on Kickstarter, so I'm glad I didn't have to go through that hassle, but I can just come play your copy. So
yeah, it was a weird and troubled Kickstarter, and he tried to do multiple things, and kind of feel bad because he said he went through all his trials and tribulations. He like mortgaged his house and all this stuff, and to make shipping costs, and it was one of those like first time creators where he didn't understand, like his game wasn't play tested enough, so it changed through development and became this. The original plan was to like each hunting area was a different like biome. So you'd go to the swamp, and there'd be like a boss in the swamp, and you'd have to fight through and get to it. And then that didn't really work out from all his play testing. So mid campaign, he completely shifted the thing, and the cards went up from like 100 cards to like 500 cards. So all his shipping costs like quadrupled, because now the deck is the box is 10 times heavier than it was. So but yeah, it's a nifty little game. It's got some interesting mechanisms in it with the like I said, I've never seen a deck builder where everyone has their own personal deck that they're recruiting from. So you're never really competing for the best cards. You're competing for the things that you're hunting, because obviously like big fatty dinosaurs are better than little skimpy ones. So and they kind of march through the board. So you're trying to take those big guys out so you can get the rewards for them. So that's really all you're competing for.
There's no player versus player.
So in the base game, no. When they launched the expansion, the secondary, like the third Kickstarter or whatever, that one they mixed in this thing where you have alpha and beta, and you take those 2 cards and you mix them. It got really convoluted. I have the rules. I never put it into play, but basically you hatch your alpha or your beta out of your deck, and then you can put it into either the main hunting deck, or you can put it into like the event deck or something. And when that card comes out, it can like kill their stuff. So when it comes out on their turn, they have to attack it. And it basically works like a boss card, because the way the game works is in the middle of the hunting deck, you'll be hunting whatever the alpha predator is for that round, for that game you set up. So you'll put in another T-Rex. So the T-Rex will have like smaller T-Rexes out, and then like the main boss will come out at some point, and you have to kill that boss in order to basically it's worth points. In the solo game, you're trying to do that before the timer runs out. You're trying to kill the boss before it happens, and you can die while fighting the boss, because basically it's like you go until somebody dies, and you can get to the point where you draw so many cards, that so many wound cards, you're just out of the game. but there's no real player versus player. It's that card. You mix your dino into some deck and it'll come out and the other player has to fight it. So it can kill them, but you don't. It's just them. They didn't build a good enough deck to fight your monster.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's Apex. And like I said, I want a box. Give me a box. Whatever. Die Hard games.
Yeah.
I'm willing to buy the box now.
Whenever you get I look forward to playing your copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Most of it's,
Yeah.
Huh?
Sounds fun.
Because it plays up to 6 players, right? I thought I remember that from the Kickstarter.
I don't know. It's been a while since I played it, and once I got the second or third Kickstarter, or maybe the second, I don't know how many. I got some Kickstarter. I didn't even sleeve the cards because it doesn't fit in the box that it's in now. Sleeving it, put it outside the box it came in, and then when I put it into the bigger box, it got even bigger. So I haven't bothered to sleeve it. Plus, the rules are a bear, and because I didn't pay for the box, I didn't get the rules, so I had to print them. So I printed them, and I was like, yeah. Anyway, all right. On to the
Lesson learned.
Yes. What did the people choose?
So I think if I remember correctly, I checked before. I believe the first people choice winner, the one that was far and away above everything else, was.
Please tell us.
I believe Marvel Legendary. Imagine that.
Oh, no. Coming out of nowhere.
It was. It was Clank.
Yes.
I think just base Clank. I don't know if he differentiated between Legacy or the Space one, but he just put Clank and everyone voted on Clank. So Clank series, and I've played it twice and don't like it. So who wants to talk about it?
Absolutely. This was my other choice for sure. Now, similarly, when I rank games or basically group them together in any kind of way, I kind of group all the Clanks together as well. But when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about Clank Legacy because Clank Legacy was fantastic. A lot of the time, if you have the right group, you can play a terrible game and still have fun. So there was probably a lot of that going on with us as well. It was like, our couple friend that we played games with, and we just played this Legacy game with them. And it was great. But I feel like the game itself was also awesome. I've said this term before, and I will stick to it. I think that Clank Legacy is the most Legacy game I've ever played. There is so much going on in this game. You are like constantly reading out of a book and getting a sticker and looking into this box and pulling this other thing out. Now we're going to put some more cards in. Now we're going to take some cards out and this other thing happened. Now we're going for another sticker. And like, it's just constantly changing what's going on. It's really fun if you're into that. Now, it's entirely possible that this could annoy you, that you're constantly reading out of the book. Now we got to go get another sticker pack. Now what's going to happen? Oh, now it's new cards going on. Like that could possibly annoy you. And that probably took up just as much time as the rest of the game. So if you're not really into all of that Legacy stuff, then just play Clank or Clank in Space. If you want to play a great Legacy game, though, that is also a deck builder, I highly recommend this. It was so much fun. Clank itself is just a lot of fun. I know I really haven't said anything about the game at this point, but basically everybody's a treasure hunter. Everybody goes into a dungeon. In Space, you're going into a ship or whatever, but everybody goes in there. There's different treasures laid out all over the place, and you go to a treasure, grab it, and run out. And that's basically the point. And if you survive or get killed above like a certain threshold, then you get to count your score. And if you die below that threshold, like deep into the dungeon, you're just dead, you lost. So, and depending upon the version you play, there's kind of a race to this. Like for instance, just the base game Clank, there's one treasure that's really close to that line. So somebody could easily run down, grab that, and run out. And now there's a timer on everybody else because every time it comes to them, now the dragon gets more powerful and more powerful. So I personally like that the least of all the versions I've played because I want to build the deck and go into the dungeon and go into the spaceship and do all this stuff. I don't want to be like a quarter of the way into what I thought the game was going to be, and somebody just ran out and started a timer that's going to kill me in a couple of rounds. But that's the game. You know, I enjoyed Clank a lot, the base game. I would be perfectly happy playing with it. It's just that I've played other versions of that now. And quite frankly, Legacy's fantastic. Now, the drawback there being you're pretty much done when you play through once. Now, it's like a lot of the other Legacy games where, yeah, you have your own personal board that you could now play Clank on, but it's not the same, you know, especially if it's not the same people. You know what I mean? Like the couple that we played this with, they moved away. So I'm not just going to grab two other random people and sit down and play our finished version of Clank Legacy. They're not going to understand anything. Like there's so much on that board with different things going on. They're going to have no idea what's going on. Even if they're Clank veterans, they would be like, what is all this? What's that do? What's this thing? You know, it's just so much different things. So, but I highly recommend the whole series. Like I said, if you like fantasy stuff, get Clank. And there's a bunch of expansions for that. There's like Mummies stuff and Silk Road, this and that. And if you like sci-fi, get Clank in Space, which is basically the same kind of thing, except it's, you know, aliens shooting at you and stuff instead of goblins coming at you kind of a thing. And if you like a good Legacy game, get this. This is in my top 5 games of all time. I absolutely love it.
Okay. Yeah, I won't get into my dislikes. I will say that our missing member that never shows up anymore, Cory, he did sell me a copy of a game that he didn't like, that I like, I think, better than Clank, but I need to play it again because the person I played it with died on the last turn and didn't get to count his score. And then he flipped out and he's like, I'm never playing another Richard Garfield game again. And that's The Hunger, which is basically about to be a more streamlined version of Clank.
Oh, no. Oh,
interesting.
I'm the one that told Cory to sell that game. I didn't know he sold it to you. I feel sorry for you. Sorry about that.
I like it.
Absolutely.
It does the same thing. Like,
no. You're not buying cards. Oh, we're gonna get in the Hunger.
Stuck you're not and die, and you don't.
No. You're not buying cards that you use one time and then you draw them again and they don't do anything for you. Like you buy humans in there and it's like, what do I do with this now afterwards? Yeah,
you meet the human. That's what you do. You got to build a better deck, man.
No. It's not a bit. No, I've played this with like 5 different people. They all hated it, so it's not just me. But
I don't know.
Somebody likes it.
I feel like if one person in the group, because that's what happened in our group. One person in the group was having a terrible time, and he dragged everybody else down with him because he complained through the whole thing. And then when he got to the end, and the last turn, he couldn't get past. Basically, one of the cards made him get stuck, and he couldn't get back to beat the sun. So he died, and he didn't get to count his score. And I'm like,
that's pretty funny.
That same exact thing happened to me in Clank. Like it literally happened the same thing, except it wasn't even my fault. Like this one was slightly his fault. He decided to stay out there for a really long time and not race. You know, he pushed the clock. So he died because he pushed the clock. I died because the game didn't give me cards to move and I just got stuck. So on to number 2.
Well, and plus you could actually buy cards to move and not draw them. And then
that's what,
you know,
well, that was the thing. I got stuck behind like a locked door and I didn't have enough movement to get through it. And then people already bought all the movement, the base movement cards. And then the deck I was at the mercy of the market and hopefully a move card would come out. And then hopefully I would draw 3 move cards so I could get behind that locked door. And I never could. And I just stayed down there for, 7 turns in the same spot, drawing, buying, hoping to get a random lucky draw. Through no fault of my own. But I did play it again. I didn't get stuck because I knew what to do, and I still didn't like it. So,
well, I'll give you that too. You could easily screw yourself over the first time you play Clank. Yeah. Then after that, you have a better idea of the flow of the game and what not to do. So,
yeah, I played it like a normal deck builder, which is buy a lot of things that give me more buying power up front. And then I'll use that to buy the better cards, except by that point, everyone else bought all the movement cards. And I had all these really cool cards that let me buy a bunch of stuff, but nothing came up I needed to buy. So
plus it's a giant deck. So you can't just, you might not get movement cards, but and so like you're saying, if you front loaded money, then 10 turns into the game, the movement cards are coming out. If they're not there to buy, you can't buy them. So what are you going to do?
I did play it again. I want to play Clank in Space because I like the way it was described with the way the different colors work together or something. It's been a while, but someone suggested like, well, you might like this one better. And I kind of thought I did, but I don't know anybody that has Clank in Space. So
we have that.
Whatever.
We have a ridiculous Clank collection. And haven't played any of it since we finished Clank Legacy.
Oh, jeez. Now, this is weird compared to what I was saying earlier that
add it to the
like
list.
Space games. Yeah, add it to the list. Because I said earlier like space games over like fantasy games, but in this case, I prefer the base Clank over Clank in Space. So that's
You like to be the guy who goes in there and grabs that knife and runs right out again, right?
Actually, I buy the hat and the thing. I'm the greedy one that gets the backpack and buys two things and still mix it up before anything else.
All right, good to know. Good.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, take a note of that. That's fine. I have no problem.
All right. Number 2, I believe, was Dominion. I don't know how far away the leader was, but I was told that it was a clear number 1 and number 2. So Dominion is number 2. And I've only played it once, and it was, I think, a weird anime magical girl version of it. And it's in Japanese, I think, for the most part, because one of my friends was really into magical girls and anime.
And who's not?
Everything,
Let's be honest. Who
was like that. So I'm not going to talk about Dominion because I don't know anything about it. So I will leave it to one of you 3 to describe Dominion.
My cards get points. There you go. Done.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, I've played hundreds of games of Dominion. You know, at the beginning of this, you said how there were a number of very good deck building games. And to me, I felt like I've played a ton of deck building games, but I don't think I've played a ton of deck building games. I think I've played a ton of certain deck building games. When I started looking through the lists and stuff, I mean, yeah, I've played some of them a few times kind of a thing, but like Dominion, I've played this so much. I've hundreds of games. And Dominion is basically the distillation of a deck builder. That's all that's going on there. There is a medieval theme going on that is BS. There's no theme to this game at all. It's really just you get an action, you get a buy, and that's the way it goes. And you buy cards that give you more actions, that maybe give you more buys, that give you more coins to buy things. And that's Dominion. Like, JJ, you nailed it. Buy cards, score points. That's this game. And this is the kind of game that you can play 10 times in a row. In person, at a table. I've done that. I've sat with friends of mine when we first started playing Dominion and be like, all right, let's do it again. Come on, let's do it again. And because you get really fast at it too, because, you know, you really start to learn the cards and hone in on this works with this. Don't buy that. That doesn't work unless I have this. You know, like you really get this like meta understanding of the way the cards work together. And when you get a group that plays it a lot, you can nail these out quickly. And you just want to go again because you're like, all right, well, that was kind of cool. Switch out some cards. Let's go again. And you just keep rolling with it like this. It's been a while. We actually, short story here. I know we're going long on time here, but I had a ton of Dominion. And then we just never played it anymore. It was one of those things we played a ton of, and then we just kind of never played it anymore. So a few years ago, I sold the whole collection at Dice Tower through the flea market or whatever. And then we went over to our friend's house about a year ago, and he had it on the shelf, and Jacoby was with us. I was like, hey, this is a deck builder. Let's play this. And Jacoby's like, you should get this. I was like, man, I just sold all of it. But we ended up getting like one box of the second edition for Christmas last year, I think. And we've played it a few times since then. But it's just a funny story because I had everything for the first version and sold it all. And then Jacoby's like, you should get this. I'm like, man, I already had all this.
That sucks.
I already had it all. But
I too have
playing it, you know, so it's fun.
Yeah. So this is deck builders are my favorite mechanic, hands down. My favorite mechanic. Clank, one of my favorite deck builders. Dominion, one of the worst games ever. If somebody's playing this, it's at the party. So somebody loves it and somebody hates it. There's a whole group, everything. It's one of the ones I run away from. So out of all the polls, this is the most divisive poll I've ever seen. I was hoping it would not even be close to the top, but you either hate Dominion or you love Dominion. And I'm definitely on the hater side. I played it once and I didn't like it, and I'm like, this is the worst deck builder ever.
I
Very
agree with
divisive
you.
right now.
That I think there is a very much a guacamole effect to this, where you either love it or you hate it. But I think a lot of that has to do with when you played it, because I think if you played it when it came out, it was revolutionary. It was amazing.
Yeah,
and that's what it'll always be to me. And I sat here and talked about Dune Imperium, which is probably about as far away from Dominion as a deck builder as you could possibly get. And I don't play Dominion that often anymore because I'd rather play Dune Imperium, or I'd rather play Lost Ruins of Arnak or anything. But it still holds a very special place in my heart, and I'd be happy to play it anytime, just because of remembering sitting there in that rush of buying cards and trying to get the freaking points and at the timing it right. And then game's over. Do it again. Let's do it again. Switch out some cards. Let's do it again. And just playing it over and over and over again with the same people and just having a really good time with it. So I hear you. Like I said, I think it has a lot to do with timing. If you played it back in the day, you probably love it. If you didn't,
that must be it then, because I didn't. Yeah. So
there's
to me,
better
it's like
games at this point.
If you played any other deck builder, it's like, why would you play Dominion?
Yeah.
Literally any other deck builder. But yeah, even the hunger.
At least he has a box for that one.
That's true. Yeah. Oh god, yeah, he has a box.
I have a box that just doesn't have a dinosaur on it. Oh well. That was kind of what I started with at the beginning, was the kind of how the deck builders have spread out and they do different mechanisms. I like things that do different things. That was kind of one of the reasons I played a lot of Ascension on my phone. But whenever I got Marvel Legendary, the cool thing about that was you had two different currencies. You had fight and you had buy, and that was one of the first times in a deck builder I'd seen like two currencies.
Well, wait,
and you had
Ascension has two currencies.
Yeah, technically it has fight and buy.
Yeah, it has fight and buy too.
I guess I don't really remember that much, and I might have been playing it at the same time. I don't know, but
no, it has fight and buy in there.
Does it have fight too?
Yeah, it has fight. You gotta fight.
It was just like one that was multi-use.
No. You gotta buy your heroes, and then you gotta fight the monsters that come out of the deck. There's one deck where everything comes in, where Legendary has two. But yeah, there's fight.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it's split
I don't remember Ascension too much, but yeah. Maybe.
To be fair, I feel like Ascension. Both of them just feel like buying. I don't feel like I'm fighting in Ascension. I feel like I'm spending this or I'm spending that. You know what I'm saying? Whereas in like Marvel Legendary, I feel like it's like I'm either buying or I'm fighting something. But I just don't feel that because that was just that first wave. It was like Dominion, Ascension, Thunderstone, but they were just pure deck builders, really. And it was just, a market kind of a thing. And yeah, some of it's fight, some of it's buy, but it all felt the same thing. You're collecting things and buying stuff with it, really.
Yep.
So I hear you.
Well, I think that is going to do it for deck builders. People picked their favorites, which JJ went off on. Does not like Dominion. Loves Clank. I hate Clank, but I would probably play Dominion over Clank any day.
Oh, I'm leaving. All right. See y'all later. I'm out of here
a little bit further.
I think that's a testament to deck builders, though, because generally people love or hate genres, whereas this is specific games. Like, people that are drastically different might like drastically different deck builders, but everybody likes a deck builder. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of a testament.
Well, some of us. Some of us. I think we're missing some people.
That's true. Well, the people in this room like deck building. That is
the missing people will be on the next video that is about the other side of building, which is dice building and bag building. So make sure to tune in for that. And you want to do the outro stuff, or you're pretty good at it, Erock. You can do it.
Sure, absolutely. So, thank you for joining us. We've had a really good time. We've mostly devolved into just discussing things amongst ourselves, but I don't know. That's kind of when we have the most fun. So, thanks for joining us, going on this little adventure where we all talked about our favorite deck building games. I am Eric. I'm here with my babe Tiffany. That is JJ Jim Jam over there. And over there, we have Lloyd, our amazing editor. And we are Just Got Played. Tune in next time. As Lloyd said, we will be doing pool building, dice building, bag building as a separate entry. And we'll have a poll up on both Facebook and in our Discord for you to vote on your favorites to be mentioned in that episode. If you enjoyed what you see, give us a thumb, subscribe to us, and come see us on our Discord. We got a link at the bottom. We'll be happy to talk about games or whatever off topic you want to
Come discuss.
Come discuss things. That's what we're for. Once again, thank you for joining us, and happy gaming.